Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another very late night edition of Wade Watches. I'm Wade. I just got through watching a late screening of 28 Years Later. And of course, this is the latest installment in the 28 Days Later franchise following the events of the aforementioned 28 days later, 28 weeks later, and now we have 28 years later, so very, very consistent, very consistent. So, the director of the director of the original, Danny Boyle, he's once again back. He did not direct 28 weeks later, but he was, I believe, an executive producer on that film. Alex Garland wrote the screenplay for 28 Weeks Later, though, and he wrote the screenplay for the original. But Danny Boyle is once again back at the director's helm for this film, and he's once again teamed up with Alex Garland. And the moment this movie started, I was in love. I was smiling. I was happy. I was strapped in. I was ready for this ride, and I am happy to say it's another masterpiece. 28 Days Later is a masterpiece. 28 Weeks Later is a masterpiece, and 28 Years Later is another masterpiece. And you can't really name, at least right now off the top of my head, I can't really name a lot of horror franchises where not only is every film good, but every film is a perfect, flawless masterpiece in its own right, at least in my opinion. But 28 Years Later has pulled that off. I absolutely adore the first two films, if you can't tell already. I love, especially the first one, 28 Days Later, where it's just this surreal, dream-like, artistic zombie horror film, but it's still very surreal. It's very dreamlike. It's also quite endearing and even wholesome. Those messages of hope and everything, and contains characters that aren't just there to be cliches. You actually care about them. They have stories. They feel quite realistic. They feel relatable. You know what I'm saying? So I love that film. And even 28 Weeks Later, which definitely goes the more traditional zombie film route. I still thought that film was a perfect masterpiece. Once again, it had solid, likable characters that I could really get behind. It had, even though Boyle didn't direct that one, it had that dreamlike aesthetic. It still had that manic editing style. Still had that killer, eerie soundtrack, almost ethereal soundtrack. Still had awesome zombie kills and zombie action. And 28 Years Later is the best of both worlds. Since Danny Boyle is definitely, is obviously back at the helm, this movie definitely has more of his stamp on it, just like the first one did. You get that surreal feeling, you get that dreamlike, art-like, feel and look to this thing. You have that manic editing style. The camera is seldom still. You have that, almost ethereal pop soundtrack, and I loved all of it. And also, in keeping with tradition, this is another instance of an anthology film where with a completely different set of characters. And once again, I found myself caring about every single person who was on screen. Jodie Comer, Aaron Taylor Johnson, and Ray Fiennes. They're obviously, I think their names are even on this poster. They're obviously the marquee names on this thing because they're the more established actors. But this is really more or less a coming of age story about the kid that you see in the trailer, by Aaron Taylor Johnson's side. It's really more or less his story. And like I said, it is a coming of age story. And I love this kid's performance, because he's not doing the typical, he wasn't directed to be, just that annoying kid that you see in a lot of popular films, because he's in a world that's obviously lost its innocence, and so it's an example of him having to grow up really fast. And I loved how they handled that in this film. And man, I just loved everything about this movie. Like, no joke, this was another flawless masterpiece from this duo. So, I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it up. I've said enough. I've loved everything about this movie, ranging from all of the performances, to the editing, to the soundtrack, to the look. Everything about it was perfect. So wrapping it up, I'm going to go ahead and give 28 Years Later a perfect 10 out of 10. This was another knockout of the park for the year of 2025. We got a lot of good stuff coming out, and it's definitely not only is it one of the best horror films of the year, but it's definitely one of my favorite films of the year so far. I would put it like just a notch below Sinners. Sinners is still like pure perfection, but so is 28 Years Later. But I think I still like Sinners just did a little bit more for me, but this oh, I just dropped it. But this really came close. So it's still really great. It's still really great, even though I think Sinners is a bit better. But I still, if you can't tell, guys, I still really love 28 Years Later. So as a fan of this franchise, as a horror fan in general, I absolutely adored this thing. Please go out and see it if you're a horror fan like me, and definitely don't miss it if you're a big fan of this franchise like me and you absolutely love those first two films like I do. It's another knockout of the park. They didn't catch that, case of like the curse of the threequel, the third one's always the worst. That does not happen here. Trust me on that. So it's a perfect 10 out of 10 for 28 Years Later. This has been another amazing edition of Weight Watchers. I'm so happy right now because obviously I was a bit concerned, but fucking masterpiece, man. So I'm so happy right now. This has been another amazing edition of Weight Watchers. It was worth coming out late to, catch one of the first screening of this movie before it officially drops tomorrow. Loved it. I love this free poster. I'm taking it home with me, and I'm definitely seeing this again this weekend. Go out and see it, guys. Love this movie. Perfect 10 out of 10 for 28 Years Later. Love this movie. But I'll catch y'all later on the next one. If you got an early screening of this film just like I did, let me know what you thought in the comments below. Like and subscribe for more. Thanks so much, guys, for watching. Namaste.